Putin did talk about increasing military cooperation, but he was not specific in terms of what sensitive technology that Russians are going to provide North Korea. And there are a whole list of things that Russians can provide North Koreans with to help their WMD capability. So that is a very important question, and I don't think we have an answer yet. But if you recall, in September of last year, Kim Jong-un and Putin met when Kim Jong-un went to Vladivostok and met with Putin. And 2 months later, North Korea was able to successfully launch a satellite when North Koreans failed to do so 2 launches prior to that in the same year. So there is concern that there is some sort of cooperation, guidance and advice and cooperations that Russians are giving North Korea. But now the key question is, more than that, what sensitive technology Russians will provide North Korea.
Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un have vowed to aid each other if the other's country is attacked. The Mutual Defence Clause is part of a comprehensive strategic partnership which the pair signed in a bid to unite against the United States. The Russian leader, who's visiting North Korea for the first time in 20 years, claimed the agreement is defensive and peaceful in nature. The Kremlin chief was treated to a lavish ceremony when he arrived in the North Korean capital, Pyongyang. Well, Dr. Sue Mi Terry is a senior fellow for the Korea Chair at the Centre for Strategic and International Studies and a former senior analyst on Korean issues at the CIA. Good evening to you, Dr. Terry.
Thank you for having me on.
Just tell us what you make of the significance of this security pact signed by these two leaders.
Well, first of all, the actual text of the document is yet to be released. So the details are uncertain. Maybe they intentionally left it uncertain, so we can all talk about it. But it does include a mutual defense provision calling for each country to provide military assistance should the other be attacked. And so this is a very significant development. We've been seeing burgeoning military alliance or relationship between Russia and North Korea ever since Russia invaded Ukraine. We know that North Korea has been assisting Russia in its war efforts. North Korea have sent some 10,000 containers that are filled with munitions and artillery shells and ballistic missiles to help Russia. The question is, what is Putin going to provide North Korea, right? North Koreans want food and fuel, but what else? Is Putin now going to provide sensitive military technologies that's going to aid and accelerate North Korea's WMD program? We know that North Korea has been focused on that. They've been expanding, diversifying, modernizing their missile program ever since the Hanoi summit with between Kim Jong-un and Trump collapsed. So that's the key question. How far this relationship is going to go and what kind of sensitive technology that Putin is going to ultimately provide North Korea.
You talked there about the scale of the munitions which North Korea has already been providing for the Russians. I mean, there were some suggestions that perhaps the military hardware which they're sending is a bit out of date. It's not particularly modern. It's not what the Russians need. But do you think it is making a difference to the Russian military campaign in Ukraine, where Russia does seem to have been gaining ground?
Well, it is war of attrition, and they're every single day they're fighting, right? And the Russians are supposedly going through some 20,000 shells, these artillery shells. So yes, it is true that North Korea stuff is not it's not the most sophisticated. That is all true. But it is still making a difference because they got a lot of it and they are sending a lot of it. And then another concern is North Koreans also get to test these weapons in the battlefield. They didn't really get to do that before. So on top of the fact that it's actually helping Russia in Ukraine, it's also helping North Korea because they're able to also test their own weapons. So this is just all around, not a good scenario for United States and its allies and the world. But
Yes.
then,
Yeah, I was
yeah,
just
go
going to
ahead.
ask you a bit more about that because the United States is clearly concerned, and presumably that is in part because of the concerns about what President Putin might be giving to North Korea, adding to the instability in that part of the world.
That's absolutely right. So that is a key question. And I don't think we will know right now. They made it intentionally vague. Putin did talk about increasing military cooperation, but he was not specific in terms of what sensitive technology that Russians are going to provide North Korea. And there are a whole list of things that Russians can provide North Koreans with to help their WMD capability. So that is a very important question, and I don't think we have an answer yet. But if you recall, in September of last year, Kim Jong-un and Putin met when Kim Jong-un went to Vladivostok and met with Putin. And 2 months later, North Korea was able to successfully launch a satellite when North Koreans failed to do so 2 launches prior to that in the same year. So there is concern that there is some sort of cooperation, guidance and advice and cooperations that Russians are giving North Korea. But now the key question is, more than that, what sensitive technology Russians will provide North Korea.
I'm looking at the gifts that were exchanged, and apparently, Putin gave his host a limousine, a kind of dagger, and a tea set. And Kim reciprocated with works of art depicting Putin. That's last bit is according to the Russian news agency. What do you make of the actual personal chemistry between these two leaders who are both in their own ways leading such isolated lives?
Well, they do have certain things in common. They're both dictators. They're both leading pariah states that's isolated from the world. But I can't speak to the bromance between Putin and Kim, and I don't know if they have the kind of chemistry that Kim Jong-un and President Trump had, for example. You recall famously former President Trump saying, they are in love with each other and they have exchanged love letters and so on. So I can't speak to the chemistry between Putin and Kim Jong-un, but clearly Kim Jong-un went all out for this summit, preparing for the summit, because this does help him. This kind of symmetry helps him. It doesn't make him look like a global leader hosting a world leader and look like a normal country to his own people. So it does give him a little bit of kind of legitimacy that he's looking for. In terms of gifts, I would just say that Mercedes is violation of UN sanctions that Putin himself signed on to. So yeah, obviously he's violating, the international sanctions regime, but I'm sure he's not concerned about that.
But clearly, what is of concern in the West is the way that these two leaders are managing to get so much of, in particular, the military equipment and technology that they want and need, despite all those sanctions, and the fact that they are able to, if you like, define their own side in this new world realignment.
Yes, I think this actually means Putin is no longer have any illusion about joining the West, that he's bent on creating a different kind of bloc and going against sort of the US-led international order and the way we're operating. So this is a very, very concerning development.
Dr. Sue Mi Terry, former senior analyst on Korean issues at the CIA, and now a senior fellow for the Korea Chair at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. It's been great to speak to you. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.